separate the two, do the retroactive and then take the,
Is that a motion?
yeah.
Moved by Ms. Cranberry to amend that resolution to put off the latter year and table it. Is there a second on that? There is no second. We'll continue discussion. Motion dies.
Well, we'll discuss it a little more, and then you can take, once you table, you can't discuss.
Oh, excuse me, hold on, slow down. Motion was made out there, there was no second. And right, it's motion to amend, okay. So, fact of the matter is, there was no second. Discuss that motion.
Can you specify, when you say retroactive, I mean, 12-13,
Yeah.
this is, okay, so you're saying,
Well,
but the current, the column that's there right now is not retroactive, that was the base pay for last year.
my impression is the column there now is their current salary plus 2% for retro.
Is that, are we sure about that?
That's what I thought I heard. That's not, again, that's part of my problem in the way this is presented. Because you're doing two moves in
Right,
one.
because that's what my impression was initially, but it's not footnoted on here or anything.
No, but I had to refer back
So,
to my
can you ask Annie if she can verify that?
Yeah, she's nodding, and we had this conversation at our recent meeting when we designed this. And this, Henry, in all due respect, there are different models and formats we could use to do this. We thought this was fairly simple, where we provide, 12, 13, and then the 13, 14. It's just straight up. And I just want to remind you, the editorial, these folks have been waiting a long time, and we've kind of forgotten about it. And I just felt like we would really strongly consider this tonight.
Just for clarification for the rest of the board, I think the column that we're missing is the column that they're currently paid now. That would serve as the first column. And the first column you see on your sheet represents that 2% raise, which we made a retro check to these folks to bring them up to speed for 12, 13, and that would bring them to a current salary of 13, 14.
So, given that, I think what Henry's talking about has a lot of merit because we need to staunch the ambiguity, and I think that the whole notion of having bans makes a lot of sense without doing the tough thinking around what those bans should be, and just sort of willy-nilly saying this makes sense, kind of categorically for the group. It just feels like we're doing this a little like we're kind of perpetuating the problem. I'd be very comfortable doing the retroactive pay, and I'm very sensitive also. I do feel that this group of folks, deserves the additional compensation that they have been getting short shrift because it's a group that doesn't have representation. I do think though that it would behoove us to spend more time thinking, much more purposefully about what this ban should look like responsibly, and then, we could go back and do retroactive 13, 14 based on the outcome of those discussions. But I don't know why we would have to. I just think it's a cleaner maneuver if we can do a retroactive for 12, 13, and then really thoughtfully think about what the right compensation band should be for this year. We'll go back to last year.
Just a quick comment. About half the districts would go, you're calling them bands, their salary schedules, if you will. About half the districts do that. But play this out. Someone comes into your district, he's a retired police officer, she's a retired police officer, and you really want to pay them a little more, but now you're locked into that salary schedule. And that's why districts love the fact that these are non-guide, and you can give them some consideration. They're already on the low end of the salary, by the way. We're paying our security like $24,000 a year. Just think about that. So I'm not suggesting that tonight, that the silver bullet is that we come back with your terminology bands or salary schedules. You may be better off in the end keeping it as it is. And as the economy fluctuates, when you have it negotiate by the fact when they walk in the door, you may be better off. But I want to just say that in the last comment, I strongly recommend that you consider giving these folks time.
Okay. No, can I?
Mrs. Feinstein.
Okay. I don't think it's the job of the board to do that. We don't come up with the bans and who should be in what. That's the administration's job to do. And we do what we say. We're micromanaging, we gotta stop that. That's not our business. If we don't like it after it's presented to us, we can vote it down. But it's not up to us to come up with that. And I just want to add an editorial here. Off-guide positions were created many years ago in most school districts because they wanted to pay somebody more money than they could pay them if they were in the union. So they made them confidential, they made them office managers, they did whatever they wanted to do. Boards of Ed, past boards in this district, I can tell you all about that, and in other districts, and that's how that got started. Because there was a time when all of these secretaries were in the union, but they weren't making what somebody wanted to pay them. And so they took them out of the union, put them off guide, and paid them more money. And that's how that started everywhere. But I don't want to be a part of coming up with how we decide who gets what. That's not our job.
Amen.
But this was brought up in Personnel Committee by the administration in terms of the band's discussion. And it was discussed this last meeting with Daniel being there. I mean, I am for this, I would vote it through, but I'm just saying, since it's such a discussion and we've had it in close also, that we should just separate the two.
My impression is that the board does have influence on positions, right? And job roles, position description, and stuff like that?
Read the policy manual.
No.
We create and approve positions, right? So positions are related to these titles. So we have influence over what positions,
No.
we have influence over what positions we have as part of our district report. So that is the purview of the board. And in terms of how we manage our finances, we can provide suggestions. We don't say this person should get X dollars, this person should get Y dollars. That's not our role. But in terms of, just as we try and negotiate a contract, if there are some guidelines that we may want to consider related to a certain position, my impression, and I may be wrong, my impression is we could put some parameters surrounding compensation guidelines for a position.
If I understood your remarks earlier, you were thinking of opposing Andy. It occurred to me that the way to go about that is to establish a policy that demands for
Yes.
all, and then in that policy, you look for the administration to come back with a recommendation as to what those demands will be.
Yes. Yes.
Did that work? By us?
No.
It just didn't sound that way as it was being discussed.
I'm sorry for not describing it as eloquently as you just did, so thank you. So again, I don't have a problem with retro. If it's the will of the board to do this guide as is, that's fine. I'm one man, one vote. I'm not going to stop it, but I just wanted to point out, we do have one contract open, and we've talked about bans and positions for a while. And if we're not going to do it now, we're not going to take action or have a plan to do it now, when is a better time to do that? So I'm done with that part. Now I'll go to the last part that I have for tonight. Oh,
This
sorry.
motion, is there any other discussion on this item? Mr. Tackett, would you restate the motion that was voted on, please?
A motion to amend 14P58 to remove the 13-14 salary column from the resolution.
And vote on it separately?
Wasn't being voted on separately, you're amending the motion. Amending the consent agenda motion.
I can't hear it, wait.
You're amending, if you vote to approve this, you're amending the 14P58 to remove the 13-14 salaries from the resolution. And then it goes on the consent agenda as is. Or as amended.
Or could you separate it into two motions? Separate it into two motions.
It's not the,
No,
it's not what the variant has to do.
two items.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So instead, the motion is to
Instead
amend
of,
to
instead of
remove it,
removing
to
it
be voted.
completely, and after that discussion, I actually would probably like to just rescind it and just vote as it is.
Thank you, let's do that. Let's do that.
That's your motion. The mover abandoned the motion. Mr. Garrison, you're the second.
I'm friendly to that. I actually was interested in hearing the discussion and the viewpoints. Personally, I think we need to be as competitive as possible in all our positions. Now the question is on the people that we're paying on the job that they're being paid to do. As far as money is concerned, pay top dollar, that's what we want. We want the person to earn and do the work of top dollar.
So there's no amendment.
No amendment, thank you.
The resolution has been withdrawn.
Okay, back to the consent agenda. Any other questions?
Am I able to make a motion to break this up into two separate votes? Yeah, I'd like to make that motion.
No, she wants
Is
to
there a second?
break up the
Great.
two.
I'll second.
Consent
Separate
discussion.
2013 from 25.
You vote, sorry, let me clarify that we vote on the 12-13 retroactive salary, and then we also do another vote on the 13-14 salary. So if people have divided opinions about this based on year, then it gets covered.
Just vote no down.
Discussion? Any further discussion on this?
Election time. Take notes.
Roll call. Ms. Feinstein? This is to break 14P 58
No.
into two. Mr. Pazan? Ms. Craig-Berry?
No.
Mr. Garrison?
No.
Mr. Pruitt?
Yes.
Mr. Demothnak? Ms. Unber?
Yes.
Mr. Hutton?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Any other?
Yeah, well, it's a different topic. Yeah, on the move to election, this is the other part. Just my impression, and I'm looking for commentary, because I may not understand things as well as I think I do, but my impression in terms of how things work surrounding the budget setting and the potential for a budget getting voted down. My impression, and I went through this once, I hope that I go through it again. My impression is the board works with the administration to come up with a budget. And as we heard tonight, the budget process started back in October. And the board, the VA and the building principals and the teachers put in all their input, and they come up with a number and spending plan that serves the best needs of our students while taking care of our staff. And we come up and say, this is the number that we think we should go forward with and put in as the tax levy. If that number is below 2%, we can go forward. If it's above 2%, we have to ask for special dispensation, ask for special reasons. If that number, after all that activity, is below 2%, gets presented and gets voted down, then my impression is it goes to the city. And the city can take money away in any category they feel is necessary to get the number down to something that they want to have levied on the taxpayers. So my concern is that if indeed we leave the election where it is and the budget gets voted down, then all the work that we did to come up with the right number for our kids could be less than what the board thought was adequate, staying within the 2%. And another body that does not have the educational focus that we may have as stewards of our children may have then the power to whack X thousand, 10,000, millions from our budget based on how they see fit. So my concern, I had a couple conversations. I had a couple conversations with other board members in other towns. That was part of the rationale that they chose in moving their election. I think that
And
not
most want to
having
go
voted
back
that,
already, after 1 year.
Redo process was one of the sweeteners that the state put in to try and have districts change. The climate is changing, and, you know, we have the 2% constraint as it is. And looking at all the work that we do as a district to say, here's the right way that we should spend to take care of our kids. I don't want to lose, I don't want to have to be overly concerned about losing the output of that work. If indeed it gets voted down. Because, you know, we have a handful of people come to these meetings, a handful take the time to vote. We have there's a handful that take the time to really understand the budget, and I value the opinions of those who try and get into the numbers. But some people who, when they go to the voting booth, they see a number, and they have the power to say, no, I don't want to pay that. They may not have taken the time to say, okay, here's what that money goes to. They vote it down, and if indeed the budget gets voted down, our children have to suffer the consequences of that vote. So that's why I'm now on the side of moving the election.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what Mr. Pruitt was saying about the cap. If you have not budgeted to cap, for instance, if you had a 0 and then a 1%, you technically have 3 additional points that you can add to the next year's budget without getting approval from the community. And this board chose to not budget to cap, which is what got them in trouble in the first place. But in addition to that, I'm going to say it again, I said it at the last meeting, the time the budget got voted down was when people on this Board of Education told the community not to vote for the budget.
We do.
I sent him in before, because I have his letter that he was handing out. I saved everything. The mayor and his friends put a full-page ad in the paper and said it's a win-win for our children. Vote down the budget. So let's not blame it on the community.
Thank you.
Because what happened was, we had people who did that and didn't really care what happened, and they were sitting on this board. They're not here now, but they were sitting on this board. And that's what happened. And I think when we're not truthful about these things, people forget. Let's not have amnesia about why that budget got voted down. I am assuming the good people of Englewood, and I've lived here a very, very long time, know that it's good for the schools. If they have good schools, if they have people interested in going to the schools, it only helps my house, so when I decide to retire and sell it, I can find somebody to buy it. So I think we need, and it is up to us to go out and we have to sell this to the community, why you need to vote on it. I mean, we can't just come up with a budget and they're like, okay, hope you all vote for it. I mean, it is up to us to sell it. I don't like changing it to November. I don't like the fact that in communities that have changed it, they get a lower percentage to vote for school board members than they did when they had the separate election. Because now you're down in the right-hand bottom corner of the ballot, and if you look at the statistics after an election, as people even go down a column, they get tired before they get to the bottom and they don't vote for the last people. So my concern is you have to educate everybody that they're going to go over to that bottom right-hand corner and vote. And I just get very concerned about that.
However, when I was listening for the purpose of the discussion, exactly what Carol said, it's up to us to sell the budget. We're the ones who are going to have to push it if we really wanted to go through. I also think education, especially here in Englewood, is important enough that we need to keep it separate. You need to know exactly what's going on with education and not lumped in. If we get lumped in, I just think we get lumped in with whatever other issues going on in the city or nationally, whatever the election is in November. So I think that's my primary reason for wanting to keep it separate, to make sure we keep people focused on education.
I completely
lot about this, and I think a lot of really valid considerations on both sides. With all due respect, I don't think Englewood is unique in the sense that our educational system would, is so different from any other municipality or other town. 91% of the districts in the state have gone over to the November election. Dave Coggan did some really great research. I was very compelled by what you sent regarding the decline in the Tenafly number of ballots cast for school board candidates when they win the election. But I've done other research, and that seems to be more of an outlier. Directionally, most of the votes seem, the number of votes seem to have increased going from an April to November election, and I think that's critical. I mean, I do think that, just in principle, we should be trying to get as many people out to vote as possible. And I think in addition to the cost savings, in addition to the fact that we'll get better, not voter turnout, but we'll get more votes cast for school board candidates, and in addition to the very real consequence of a budget being torpedoed, I think it really, all things being considered, I think it's not a slam dunk. There are definitely counter arguments that I do find compelling, but net, I have to say, I've given this a lot of thought, and I believe that it's the right thing to do to move it to November.
With that, Molly, if the point you just made, are you getting a bigger voter turnout?
Yeah, more votes cast for school board.
No, you don't.
But if you move to November, are people paying attention to the school board?
Discussions up here, please. Thank you.
Are people paying attention to the school board election and not just voting for the sake of voting? Yeah, I think if you keep it separated, people know that their purpose is for education, not just for the, it doesn't matter if you have 5,000 people vote or 1,000 people vote or 500. People have to know that they're voting for the benefit of the kids and education.
But anyone who's extremely passionate about educational outcomes in our city
He knows nothing
is
about
going to
it.
cast their vote either way. So you're going to capture that group of voters.
I'd like to give our people more credit that if you came out there to vote, that you don't have a problem looking at the bottom right corner of a piece of paper if someone tells you that it's there. If our job is to get people to understand what's on that ballot to vote, and certainly everybody in the audience is the same, I could make that same copy piece of paper and show it to everybody. I think that's a weak argument for not changing the date, is worrying about people finding something if you show them where it is. I think we need to give our people more credit than that. You're going to get more voters out there. And if you got people voting just because they're looking for something that they don't, I don't get it. I think the money aspect, I agree, should be a last consideration. I wouldn't put that up front. Whatever the number is, I really don't care. We got to do it right now. The money to me didn't mean anything. But I wrestle with the argument that voters, people who vote and care, especially if they know where that is on that piece of paper, just like that piece of paper was given to us today, can't find what they're looking for. And if you come out here to vote, you came out here to vote, and you know what you came out to vote for. We're not ignorant voters. Everybody knows what they came out to vote for.
Totally not right.
Let my days be numbered. I will fight, I will continue to sit on this board and fight for our children. I find it very disturbing when you're sitting, and I think it was a board meeting in the middle school, where I had to speak up to get a bus, which probably costs less than $1,000 for kids that are in need for remedial work at McLeod. It was an argument about a half hour just to get that bus approved. Talking about the budget, everything that you do, try to, especially in academics, there's always a concern about money. I say, let's focus on the kids. I am not here for the political reasons, but I will let you know that I would like to amend this resolution, that if it is passed, I would like the money to go directly to the children. I am not settled with the way that it was presented in terms of just sending 15,000 to Eagle program, 15,000 to comprehensive, and 15 to music. I went into the schools. I have gathered the information in terms of specific programs. There's a program at the Eagle that was actually pulled from Eagle 3 years ago. It was an award-winning program. It was a video program. It's a program that we have all the cameras and equipment sitting with us. I want that to be on this resolution, that money would go to start that program again. That's 3 years. Those kids are seniors. We are doing them a disfavor. Give them a chance. Give them a career opportunity. I think that someone came up here and was talking about preparing our kids for the real world. In the comprehensive side, it's really disheartening that a lot of kids that do not get accepted to the academies, that they're going around despondent and feeling as though they don't have any hope going to our comprehensive high school. I find that disgusting. I think that you should have programs that will prepare them for the real world. There were, I believe, 2 programs in there. There was a Rotary program, which I did fight for them to have a senior experience. There's a technology math lab that was proposed by Pete Albert. I think he was here and stuff. I think that money should go to those programs, and also the music. I have gotten a detailed report on how he intends to spend the money. I would like you all, I have a copy of all 3 of those reports, and if you could pass them down and take a look at it. But I do move to amend this resolution to include these specific programs. Just in case it is passed, I want that 47,000 to be specifically laid out in there. So vote yes.
Clarify, you're moving to amend how the money is provided to those programs. Please, second.
I believe when you have done it, it's based on a $47,000 saving, was it? 42?
That's a bogus number.
It's a real number that the VA has given us.
That's making real more bogus.
That's the same VA who doesn't know where the money is.
Whatever it is, 15,000 to the comprehensive high school for the math lab program.
That's administrative.
And also, I believe they have a medical program that does actually less cost effective. This actually would be a small seed that will be planted, because once we do this and once we put the money to the program, we will be able to apply for the Perkins Fund grant. And using those managers for these programs, we can actually get more money that
administrative.
Bring this.
I know what she wants to do, but it's not a policy decision.
Endeavor.
She's a policy.
On the Eagle program, I believe that was another.
Understandable. Then they should make that a policy, not use that as a carrot for the people to go and vote to change the election. 15 for the Eagle and 12 for the music program. But I will give you the paperwork of the specific programs and how it will be.
Is there a second on this?
Give them April.
Wait, it has to be seconded first. There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Now you can discuss.
It sounds like the intent is largely consistent with the allocation. My concern on making a specific amendment is I would look for Dr. Carl to say, yes, these programs are viable and consistent with what we're trying to do. So if Dr. Carl would say, yeah, here's how I'm going to put the program in the schools in America, that's an easier item. Maybe they already have that worked out.
Yeah. Can I just say that this is not an idea. I am in no way, shape, or form an administration for the school. I actually went into the school and I spoke to Dr. Carlisle. I actually went to the principal. He has worked with the principals to come up with this. I just asked, I went into the schools and asked each principal exactly what are they looking for, what their suggestions are. They actually worked with Dr. Carlisle. I did not come up with this list. I just said, if you have the money and if we can help our students immediately, what can we do? And this is what they came up with.
That's absolutely true. And I think we all three of those gentlemen players today.
Or he's going to say, I abstain.
Any questions on the motion? Motion on amending 14-73, such that the district have 15K for the pre-roll, 12K for the music program. Are there any questions?
Ethical.
I don't know, are we sure those are numbers? If they are, then that is $5,000. I don't think this whole motion is about money. I think that was a mistake to even make it part of money. If we happen to save money, whatever it is, I think we should allocate it as Molly said. Forget about what the money is. When it's saved, whether it's $5,000 or $1,000, let it go wherever it can go to best use for the kids. I don't think this vote should be about money. It was a mistake to put it number one. Reason, I stated my reason why I thought it was, and I stand by that.
Vote.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I would hope that if this does not move, and the dates do not move, this board does not think that that means that monies cannot be earmarked for this program.
Amen.
Whether the election is moved or not, these are things that we have discussed, and these are things that we can budget for in our $66 million budget. And let's not think that
So you're playing politics right now?
turn the tide, let's get these programs underfoot, get them going without moving the election, if that.
Thank you.
That's the one thing
To clarify that, Mr. Garrison, one of the things is that regardless of what we do, we'll have to identify another source of funds to fund this. And
That will actually lead me to my next question, relative to today's agenda,
yes.
and that is on the Amistad curriculum.
Hold on a second.
You have to vote on the motion.
Discussions on the motion. If there's no further question on the motion, roll call.
There is a conflict of interest if anyone is up for election in April.
Ms. Feinstein,
Okay, we're voting on,
The motion to amend 14-73 to apply savings
No.
as noted.
no.
Mr. Khan,
Oh,
Ms. Craig-Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Garrison,
Hmm?
Mr. Pruitt,
Yeah.
Mr. Demontanak, Ms. Unger.
Sorry, I didn't repeat
It's to amend 14-73 to apply the savings.
yes.
Mr. Houghton,
Yes.
motion passes.
Any other discussion on the items?
Yes, I'm on Amistad, and, you know, this law
They were just voting.
passed, I guess,
Remember.
2002.
So they just tied the money to the program.
I'm glad to see it listed on our agenda.
But they haven't changed that.
My question is, when will we get curriculum materials to implement Amistad? How soon do we get those materials?
Online, and it should be up to the
Number
individual
two,
teachers.
we missed out on applying for a grant associated with Amistad. I believe the state gives $50,000 annually for a programmable, to bring the curriculum properly to your school for those districts in need. I think we would qualify for one of those districts. It's $5,000 that goes out to 10 districts annually. And I want to know, number one, who's going to submit for that grant and when are we going to put it in?
I'm going to defer that question to Dr. Gordon. Dr. Gordon, can you come up, please?
This would be interesting.
The Amistad curriculum is already in existence. It was written by.
Speaking to the mic.
The curriculum is already in existence. It's also accessible online. I put the link to it in the materials going on with the resolution. And what we've done in the curriculum department, we see the importance of us instituting that curriculum. That's why we make it into resolution so that we can hold people accountable, hold ourselves accountable. So going forward, in the past, it might have been done, but going forward, we will make sure that we take back something.
I appreciate that. Once again, I don't want to miss the opportunity to apply for that money as a district who, in my opinion, was newly instituted the curriculum. I know that we try to go beyond next month's Black History Month when it comes to infusing African American studies and history, etc. And I hope this curriculum will cement the fact that we're doing that 10 months out of the year rather than one. But then once again, there's money out there to go after for a district like ours. I want to make sure we get that.
Yes, and that's why we brought purposeful, and this has been in existence for years. It wasn't put into effect, and we are making sure that it goes into effect. That's why we put the resolution in place to make sure.
I just would like to add something to that. The grant has nothing to do with the curriculum being in place, but I agree with you. We would qualify for that grant and would give $5,000 to be used for the teachers across the social studies that are teaching this, so that they could use it for projects in their classroom, taking the kids on field trips, all kinds of things. We have a social studies, no longer a social studies teacher sitting here, but you can apply for that grant, and $5,000, I agree, if it's out there, we should be applying for it every year.
I can't resist this opportunity to just springboard for a moment. All of these little grants that add up, that we're sort of leaving on the table, I know that people are maxed out, but we need to figure out a way to, I just feel compelled to say this. We just
Get a full-time curriculum person.
Try and reach these purposefully, you know?
I still get some of my money.
Assistant Superintendent in charge of curriculum and development.
Okay, so that also leaves me 14